It's become a Halloween tradition of mine to make a Coraline doll every year. The first year I made myself, and then the next I made Coraline, and then after that I made Wednesday Addams. And for this year I am going to make Sally from The Nightmare Before Christmas. The first step is to make a wire armature of the doll. This paper template I have here is available as a link in the description below. The most important tip for making the armature is to make sure it fits inside the template and has enough room inside of it. That way it's not too big for when you're putting your armature inside the fabric body later. Here I am just finishing up my armature by cutting off the excess wire and then tucking in those little pokey pieces to keep my hands and fabric safe. But then I just filled the head with some tin foil. This was just to give me a good base that I would sculpt on, and that way my head of the doll is not super heavy because clay is pretty dense. I use polymer clay for this, which is an oven-baked clay. It can come out of the package pretty hard, but if you knead it for a while, it'll become soft and pretty malleable. And I just make a flat base that I then wrap around the foil and start sculpting from there. The previous year's dolls I've made before have had pretty similar features on their faces, nothing too crazy, but Sally did have some different features. First of all, you never see her ears, so I didn't have to sculpt ears this time around. And also, she doesn't have eyebrows, so I didn't add eyebrows to her, but she does have this extra stitching across her forehead, so I did add that. Once I was happy with how she was looking, I then put her in the oven to bake. I just followed the directions on the wrapper of the clay. I think I did 20 to 25 minutes at 275. Then I sanded her face just to make things nice and smooth, and then moved on to cutting out the pattern for her body. For this, I just traced my template, and then that blue line I drew is where I'm going to sew. And then I just cut around it, kind of not very precisely, and just use that blue line as a guideline to stitch everything together. Before flipping the pattern right side out, I made sure to cut up to the stitching in the corners and any round edges. That way, when you flip it, it holds its shape better. Is that the right way to say that? The curves are more curvy. And then I just put a bunch of stuffing in her arms and legs and slided the armature in, and then finished stuffing the rest of the body and sewed it all up at the neck. My neck, the way I sewed it, it was very square in the shoulders, so then I just folded that extra fabric down and rounded the shoulders out, and I liked the way it was looking much better. Then it was time for the most fun part, which is painting the doll. I just followed a bunch of reference pictures I had of Sally. She has like this pale blue skin in a lot of the pictures, and I painted her stitches and added some darker blue eyeshadow that she has, and then I make sure to paint her hairline as well. That way, if there are gaps between the yarn I glue on later, it's not as noticeable. If it was all blue, you would see that color popping through. I loved painting all these little details on her bodies, especially her striped stockings. I never really noticed those before, and they're so cute, and I'm glad I made this because I'm just appreciating Sally's design so much. It's so charming and whimsical and a little spooky. I love it. Here I am just cutting the yarn for her hair, which I then glue on with some rubber cement. It is a very sticky and messy process, so I recommend wearing gloves if you make your own doll. But yeah, just gluing on some hair. Moving on to her dress. Her dress was very intimidating for me. It is very detailed and she has a lot of different like pieces of other fabric sewn together. My solution to this was to just paint it all on. The thought of sewing individual pieces of a tiny little dress, I am far too lazy to do that. So painting seemed like a good solution that wasn't so overwhelming. And I just genuinely enjoy painting on little details like this, so it really was a win-win. After the paint had dried, I was left with two very stiff pattern pieces for this dress, but they went through the machine just fine, and once they were sewn together, I just flipped them right side out. Again, they were very stiff, so this was a little tricky, but once it was right side out, it looked great, and I was very happy with how this dress came out. After getting the dress on Sally, I realized that the sleeves were too long, so I just cut them shorter with a pair of scissors and then sewed up the shoulders of her dress by hand. She is almost finished, she just needs those button eyes. I just take these black buttons and put some E6000 on the back of them, and once the glue is dry, the doll is done. Here is Sally with all the previous year's dolls. I am so excited with how she came out, and seeing these all together is so cute. And yeah, again, I'm just so happy with how she came out, and I had a blast making this. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye! You gonna be my model?